Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Asheville. We are glad that you're here. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, however you identify, you are welcome in our faith community. My name is Laurel Jernigan. I'll be your worship associate today, along with our visiting minister, Roger Jones, our music director, Les Downs, and especially grateful for Jason Smith running our AV today. If you're visiting in the sanctuary, welcome. We're so glad you're here. And if you're visiting online, we invite you to put your name and where you're visiting from in the chat box so we can know that you're here. Now let us prepare for worship with today's centering music.
Good morning. I bring you greetings from the congregation, the people in the congregation I serve at the UU Society of Sacramento, California, and good morning to you. The symbol of the flaming chalice represents our broader Unitarian Universalist religious heritage. As we light it this morning, we affirm our connections to congregations across this country and around the world. Please respond to these words. I'll begin, and please respond with the words that are underlined. We kindle this flame, the symbol of our shared search for truth and understanding.
In times of celebration, may its brightness reflect our gratitude.
In times of need, let its warmth renew our connections to one another and the spirit of life.
In times of confusion or uncertainty, may its fire bring us courage and commitment.
In times of change, let its light illuminate our values.
May our values call us forward into better days together.
Our call to worship comes from the late Reverend Peter S. Rabel, with revisions by Scott Taylor, both UU ministers, but it is based on a passage from the book of Deuteronomy in the Hebrew Scriptures. We build on foundations we did not lay. We warm ourselves by fires we did not light. We sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. We drink from wells we did not dig. We profit from persons we did not know. We are ever bound in community. May it always be so. Together we are more than any one person could be. Together we can build across the generations. Together we can renew our hope and our faith in the life that is yet to unfold. This morning, let us gather in hope and in faith. And let us rise in body or spirit to join in singing our first hymn, which is number 126 in the hymnal, and which you'll see on the screen. Laurel and I have a story to share with you today. It is called Duck Rabbit, and it's a book by the author. I don't want to.
Amy Krauss Rosenthal and Tom Lichtenheld.
Very, very good memory there. Hey, look, a duck.
That's not a duck, that's a rabbit.
Are you kidding me? It's totally a duck.
It's for sure a rabbit.
See, there's his bill.
What are you talking about? Those are his ears, silly.
It's a duck, and he's about to eat a piece of bread.
It's a rabbit, and he's about to eat a carrot.
Wait, listen. Did you hear that? I heard duck sounds.
That's funny. I distinctly heard rabbit sounds.
Now the duck is wading through the swamp.
No, the rabbit is hiding in the grass.
There, see, it's flying.
Flying, it's hopping.
Look, the duck is so hot, he's getting a drink.
No, the rabbit is so hot he's cooling off his ears.
Here, look at the duck through my binoculars.
Sorry, still a rabbit.
Here, ducky, ducky.
Here, you cute little rabbit.
Oh, great, you scared him away.
I didn't scare him away, you scared him away.
You know, maybe you were right. Maybe it was a rabbit.
Thing is, now I'm actually thinking it was a duck.
Well, anyway, what do you want to do now?
I don't know, what do you want to do?
Hey, look, an anteater.
That's no anteater, that's a Brachiosaurus.
The end.
The end. Now, children and youth, we invite you to religious exploration. You will be sung out of the sanctuary to meet the group leaders in the foyer or in Sandberg Hall. Look for the adults holding a sign with your age group on it. And parents, if you're new or visiting, please escort your children to find their adults, their group leaders, so that you can know where to pick them up after the service. And we will now sing the children out.
Now I invite you to a time of centering and prayer. First, please join me in centering ourselves in an awareness of our breathing. Let us take in a deep inhale breath and pause for a moment and then let it out. And now a second time, a deeper breath in, pausing, and then letting it out deeply. And now a third breath, and I invite you on exhaling to breathe it out with an audible sigh, full of your spirit. So breathe in deeply, pause, and then breathe out with a sigh. And now I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer. O breath of life, O spirit of love, draw near to us. Bring us peace when we need it. Lead us to extend peace and share it when we can. Remind us of the power of kindness and patience. When we are sad, hurting, mournful, and in need, bless us with comfort. When we feel uncertain in our lives, steady us. Give us strength. When we worry about our community, this country, and the planet, remind us that we are not alone in our concerns and in our hopes. Urge us to reach out to others, to build relationships. And when we come to know of the need for more justice, more dignity, and more freedom in the larger community and in our world, give us the courage to bear witness to our values. Give us the humility not to have all the answers. Help us to be grateful for every good gift, starting with the gift of this day. O breath of life, Spirit of love, be with us now and in all the days to come. Bring us peace when we need it, and lead us to extend peace and share it when we can. So may it be. Blessed be, and amen. And now let us take some time together for our personal prayers and private meditation, some time of silence, and the silence will be ended by the sound of the chime. This is a community of care and compassion, of gratitude and celebration, and we acknowledge that richness in this time of joys and sorrows. So if you're in the sanctuary, please feel free to come forward to light a candle. And if you're online, please write in the chat box any joys or sorrows that you would like to share with the congregation. If you have shared a joy, know that we rejoice with you. And if you have shared a sorrow, know that you are held in love and care by this community. I have asked Les to play a musical reflection for us, and it's the second theme from the third movement of Sergei Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto. And I will tell you a little bit more about Rachmaninoff and about that piece of music after we hear it. Thank you, Les. As I mentioned, that's from the Second Piano Concerto by Sergei Rachmaninoff. And our church pianist in Sacramento is Irina Chantseva, and Irina told me a story about Rachmaninoff. She said that he was one of the great pianist composers of the world, admired both for his brilliant playing and his works of beauty. After the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, he fled to the United States. His first concert was in Providence, Rhode Island, and then he settled on the Upper East Side of Manhattan with his family, later in life relocated to Beverly Hills, California. Rachmaninoff was considered one of the most successful performing musicians of his time. Yet his fame and success would never suggest the struggle and insecurity he experienced throughout his life. In particular, he was forever haunted by the failure of his first symphony in 1887. At its premiere in St. Petersburg, an under-rehearsed orchestra with a probably inebriated conductor made the symphony a fiasco. One critic, another composer, compared it with the biblical 10 plagues of Egypt and said that that piece of music was fit only for a music conservatory in hell. With his dreams crushed, Rachmaninoff plunged into a severe depression. For the next 3 years, he wrote almost nothing. Eventually, with the support of a psychiatrist, he could return to work. He dedicated the Second Piano Concerto, from which we just heard some music, in honor of his doctor, Nikolai Dahl. The doctor had helped him to climb out of despair and restore his confidence. And what was the fate of that infamous First Symphony? Rachmaninoff locked the manuscript away in a desk. He made no attempt to put together the orchestral parts for it before leaving in his haste. It was only after the composer's death in 1944 when the instrumental parts were discovered by accident in the archives of the Leningrad Conservatory Library. The second performance of the piece was considered a success. It took place at the famed Moscow Conservatory in 1945. The American premiere took place just a few years later in 1948 with Eugene Ormandy conducting the Philadelphia Orchestra. After his death, Rachmaninoff's reputation as a composer rose. That symphony became part of the standard repertoire of great orchestras. Our pianist in Sacramento told me, from different times and places, these are some of the responses of listeners who were stunned by this work. One said, "One of the best romantic symphonies of all time." Another called it ferociously impressive. And another person said, "I've lived so long without being familiar with it. Peace to all. And if you meet rejection at first, it could well mean that you are a power waiting to be recognized." I'm so glad to have learned that story.
Thank you, Roger. One of my previous jobs at Ollie at UNC Asheville up the hill was running a program called Paths to Creative Retirement, where we helped people who are approaching retirement plan not for the financial piece, but for the life piece of retirement. And in that program, we had one session that was always particularly powerful that focused on identity. And most of the people who came to this program had been working very hard their whole lives, and during that time primarily identified themselves by their career. And many had not taken the time to develop outside interests or hobbies or nurture friendships away from the workplace. And in this session, they would be asked to go around and introduce themselves to the other people like they were at a party, but they were not allowed to say anything about their job or their family, a couple other things. And this would be always a profoundly eye-opening moment for most of the people in the room. Some would really struggle to come up with anything to say about themselves. And as I watched this for years, my observation was that many of them had spent their whole lives while they were working as adults, creating the story of who they were entirely centered around their work identity and status. And they really never stopped to examine who they would be when that piece of their life had ended. The participants took this opportunity to begin to rewrite their stories before they were rewritten by circumstances. They always did find something to say about themselves. I'm really grateful, this prepared them to more creatively meet the transition that was coming for them. And I'm grateful for the chance to have witnessed many groups of people have this experience, because I took away the lesson that choosing to examine and being willing to rewrite your own story on your own terms can benefit anyone at any stage of life.
Thank you, Laurel. Stories are powerful aspects of human life. Stories enrich, challenge, and connect us. Yet any of us can get hooked on stories that lead us away from connection with others. In the story Duck Rabbit, which Laurel and I read out loud to you, each of the characters had a story stuck in their head about what they saw. They were so convinced that they knew what they were looking at that they couldn't even consider another perspective, could not imagine that they might be part of a larger story which could include both of them. They got so upset with each other that the story was no longer about the mystery to be explored. The story was about their conflict. Of course, there was a brief chance in the story of a new story emerging because they were going to ask the creature, "What do you call yourself?" But it was too late. They had scared it off. What's your story? When people meet, sometimes one will ask the other person, "So, what's your story?" In the dominant culture, there are acceptable stock answers. Your age, background, place of origin, family, field of work. And to be honest, if you don't have a sense that your listener will receive your story with care, you might be safe with stock answers. But as listeners and as speakers, we must remember that every life can be told from various angles and perspectives. We contain many stories. Every story may have something that's true about it, but every story may not be helpful to keep on telling. Some stories get in our way. We can get hooked on stories that keep us from accepting ourselves for who we are, keep us from feeling grateful for our lives. They can sap our sense of purpose, sap our sense of worth. Today, let's look at some good ideas for telling new stories. Diane Millis is a professor and a spiritual director in Minnesota, and she's the author of a book entitled Recreating a Life. By this title, Millis doesn't mean creating a different life from the one that you have. She's talking about taking some time to think about your life using a variety of perspectives. For example, she recommends that we imagine our stories in the third person. Rather than thinking, I did this, or that happened to me, we should think about ourselves as the main character in a story. Our narrator's perspective for this story should be a perspective of compassion. The story can bear witness to the pain experienced, but also to the courage, fortitude, and survival of that main character. The narrator could highlight the moments of goodness, highlight the moments in the story that enrich our lives. Millis recommends that we start this story the way we would start a fairy tale, once upon a time. Sit down and write it out, she says. Take only 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be long, just a page or two. Of course, like a fairy tale, our story might have dangers and hardships in it, but it might also contain unpredictable journeys worth telling. Consider, when did a detour in plans bring this person to a surprising place in life? Tell the parts of the story that show your lead character's endurance and ingenuity. Describe the gestures of kindness that this person received, kindness given to others as well. Diane Millis advises, you are the story you tell yourself, so make sure you tell yourself a good story. Once upon a time, when Diane Millis was a little girl in Minnesota, she thought she had a perfect life, and she tried very hard to keep it that way. Yet her parents divorced, and she and her mother moved away to Arizona. She left behind her family, her school, and her sense of holding everything together. Her world was broken apart. In early adulthood, she used to wonder, what if that little girl's parents had not split up and she hadn't moved away? How much better would her life be now? Now, however, many years since then, she can admire that little girl's endurance and her strength. She can give thanks for the people that she met along the way. And she can identify the talents which she developed in the midst of it all. For example, her ordeals taught her the practice of compassionate listening. She's able to bring this practice to her life as a mother, wife, teacher, and listening professional. She says we must hold our own stories lightly, not tightly. This is how we can receive the stories of other people too. Lightly, not tightly. Too often the stories we tell are saturated with problems. It's tempting to connect with other people by telling sad stories. It's tempting to bond over lamenting or complaining or grumbling. Yet Such stories can be draining to hear, draining to tell. The problem-saturated story is not the only story. It's just one of many that we could tell. Perhaps it would connect us even more if we included some shining moments in our stories. Assuming that we're not one-upping each other or we're not telling a lie, we can share the moments that shine for us. Millis doesn't say we should ignore pain or that we should sweep away our problems, only allow the shining moments to be seen in the stories. 26 years ago, this summer, I began in ministry by serving the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Sunnyvale, California. And a little bit of time after I began serving there, I went to Boston to attend a training session for a group of new ministers that was hosted by the Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston. And one of our trainers is a minister and a consultant and an author. And he said to us, for one of our getting connected exercises, he said, I know that you can outdo each other with a problem-saturated story about your congregation. So I'm not going to ask you for that. Instead, he said, think of 3 shining moments from the life of your congregation. 3 shining moments. He gave us some time to think, and then we went around in a circle, telling one shining moment, going around 3 times. And after we told our stories to the group, each one of us felt hopeful and confident about our work. And as we heard sparkling moments from other people, we felt happy. We gave thanks for one another's work. It brought us together. It left us with a much better mood than a problem-saturated story would have. You are the story you tell yourself, so make sure you tell yourself a good story. Looking back at the boy who is the main character of my life story, I could tell a sad story, and I have on some occasions, but I don't recall ever having told it in the third person, and it would serve me to add some shining moments to the story. So, once upon a time, in a dysfunctional, distracted family, this boy didn't feel welcome. You could say that his days were saturated with loneliness. But on many evenings, he learned to play card games at the nearby home of his great aunt, his mother's Aunt Kate. And sometimes he spent whole days at another nearby house, the house of his cousins and his Uncle Roger and Aunt Mary. He enjoyed many home-cooked meals there, discovering some dishes that he had never even heard of before. His uncle had served in the Second World War as a cook on a Navy ship. And when his uncle recalled the task of making Thanksgiving dinner with turkey and all the trimmings for hundreds of men on a ship at sea, describing it in detail, his uncle's eyes twinkled. In school, this boy felt lonely and shy. Yet in high school, he became a high school newspaper reporter. And this made it easier for him to get other kids to talk because he could ask them questions and write down what they said. This relieved his awkwardness. It made some of his teachers notice his work and comment on it, which he liked. He was a people pleaser, and he didn't really want to make waves, so he often held himself back at home and in school. Yet, armed with a reporter's notebook and fired up with his First Amendment right to the freedom of the press, this little teenager sat in the principal's office, grilling the man with questions about this or that policy of the school. Another time, this kid argued with a tall, white male history teacher who did not like an editorial opinion this kid had written and published. Back then, the boy who felt so strong and supported by the First Amendment and his role as a reporter didn't realize that he was armed also with privilege as a male and as a white person, privilege which made it easier for him to get away with being so bold with authority figures. But if he had known about this privilege, he might have written or spoken about that as well. In any case, he can do that now. This boy dreaded physical education class. He felt self-conscious and inadequate. So many dropped baseballs in the outfield. So many basketballs missing the basket. Yet in high school physical education class, he learned how to swim laps. He was never a competitor at swimming, but using that skill has given him pleasure and health for decades. So that's me in the third person. Once I started writing this story, I remembered other shining moments from it. It made me feel better. Not only do I have more compassion for the kid who's the main character of that story, I like him better than he liked himself. We must hold our stories lightly, not tightly, except for our phantom stories. We should let go of them altogether. Phantom stories haunt us with lives we didn't live. They include asking the what if questions and lamenting the if onlys of our lives. Sometimes I listen to them. If only I had stayed in that relationship or the other one. If only I'd gone to law school or medical school. What if I had majored in computer science? Phantom stories are so powerful that they can seem realistic, but they're not. They get in the way of appreciating the life that we have. Instead of telling a phantom story, let's consider the story that we want to create now for the days in front of us, the story we want to create for the days ahead of us. And let us remember that every story is incomplete and unfinished. As I mentioned earlier, Sergei Rachmaninoff's First Symphony was rejected by critics when it premiered, in part because the orchestra played it badly, and in part because it was bold and unfamiliar. The story of rejection and failure haunted Rachmaninoff for years, and he left that composition locked away for the rest of his life. Fortunately, with compassion and guidance from his doctor, with support from a listening professional, Rachmaninoff was able to resume composing. And fortunately, that bold First Symphony was discovered some years later. It was published and played, and it continues to enrich the world. Every story is incomplete and unfinished, even after we're gone. We don't have to be a composer whose early work was hidden away for this to be true. There is always more to be heard, more to understand, more to appreciate. Let us imagine that a larger story remains always to be unveiled, to be told, to be appreciated. Let us consider our own stories and write them and tell them with as much compassion as we can, holding the tough moments with love and celebrating the moments that shine. Doing this will help us be able to bear witness to the stories of others and to receive others' stories with care. Stories enrich us, connect us, and challenge us. They are gifts we share. May we be grateful for these gifts in all the days to come. So may it be. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn is number 86. We invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing.
Hello, hello, okay. If you're visiting here today, we would love to know that you're here so we can welcome you afterwards. Is there anyone that's visiting that would be brave enough to stand up and introduce themselves and tell us where you're visiting from? And if so, we have some microphones available with the ushers. Just raise your hand.
Hi, I'm Patricia. I'm here with my family who's all out of the sanctuary right now. Shane and our sons Osiris and Tobias, and we're here visiting my sister Victoria for the weekend.
Welcome.
And we go to the UUC of the New River Valley in Virginia.
Hi, my name is Rich. This is Angela. We are from the UU congregation in East Brunswick, New Jersey, and we're here for the holiday weekend with our kids who are back in the Airbnb.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Kitty Reynolds. I'm a member of Asheville Friends Meeting. I'm happy to be here today. I wanted to hear Les play Rachmaninoff. He's my piano teacher. And he is so good, and you are so lucky.
Welcome.
My name is Jack. I actually live here in Asheville, but I lost my job a couple weeks ago. That's not, the good part of the story is I'm here today. I normally work on Sundays, and so I haven't been able to attend since I moved here last August. This is the first Sunday I've been able to attend, and I hear y'all are going to have a new minister who used to be my former minister in Cheyenne, so I'm really stoked about that. So yeah, glad to be here.
Guys, give Wink some business there.
Hi, I'm Gail. I live in Weaverville.
Right over here.
My name is Jennifer Weddle. My husband is Richard Weddle. We were pretty consistent visitors pre-pandemic. We came with our first child, Winter, but now we have two more, Harrison Reed, and hopefully we'll be more consistent again now.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Christina, and I moved here to Asheville in January, and I finally got here.
Good morning, my name is Mary. I'm a halfback, half here and half from Miami, and I go to the UU in Miami, and I've been going to the Swananoa congregation, but this one is much closer to my home.
Hi, I'm Wanda, and I'm relatively new to Asheville, and this is my first time here.
Welcome.
One more there.
Hi, I'm Hannah Shell. I'm visiting my mother and sister and brother-in-law, Elizabeth and Rick Lane Shell. I think are previously used to be pretty active in this church. And I am a member of the lay-led congregation in Guelph, Ontario, a UU church there. So greetings from them. So, yesterday was Canada Day, so.
Going once, going twice. Well, thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. For those of you who live here, we hope you'll be back. And for those of you who are visiting, thank you so much for coming to see us on your vacation or wherever you're here. We're really happy that you're here. So our announcements ran at the beginning of the service on the slides. If you didn't see them, they come out in the Thursday newsletter. And if you don't already get that newsletter, you can sign up online, or the ushers can help you get set up with that. Our community plate is typically collected on the first Sunday, which is today, but we like to have a speaker from our recipient, and this month, as last month, is Blue Note Junction, and today is Dwayne Barton's birthday, so they are not here, but they will be here next week. So we are going to do our full collection for our community partner, Blue Note Junction, next week, but you can donate this week if you like. You just put community plate in the memo line of your check, or if you donate online, there's a button for that. But next week we'll do our full collection with Blue Note Junction here. So today's offering will now be collected and gratefully received. If this is your first time here, we invite you to consider letting the collection plate pass you by. This service is our gift to you, and your presence is your gift to us. The offering will now be gratefully received. For the gifts of your time, presence, talent, and treasure, we are truly grateful.
And now as we prepare to depart and prepare for fellowship, may you depart in peace and return in joy. For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. And for all who seek a right path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step, one day at a time. Blessed be and amen. Now we invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing our closing song, followed by a sung postlude, and we invite you to reach out to one another. If you're at home, reach out to us, and we reach out to you.